What's up, crypto hackers? Welcome back to another episode of Hack Crypto, where we hack cryptocurrency and blockchain education, where we go through everything around blockchain, NFTs, and crypto in general. If you guys are brand new here and you want to see more demos, more interviews, don't forget to be subscribed with notifications on. Slap a like on this video. It really helps the channel get more awareness to NFTs and crypto in general. And on this episode, I sit down with Nick Emmons. He is the CEO and co-founder of Upshot. This is a really cool crowdsourced approach to making priced appraisals on NFTs. It's a really fantastic way of applying game theory to things around price prediction and price appraisals. I love that they put up two different types of punks and you get to choose which one you see as more valuable. And they have a lot of great mechanisms in the protocol to prevent bad actors like big whales from coming in and trying to change the price. And it's just a really cool project. I like seeing when peer-to-peer driven appraisals like this are happening because this is the future. And this is kind of like a gig economy play here. Nick talked about this a little bit offline, but ultimately people are going to be able to do this as a full-time job, literally sitting on their laptop, appraising amazing NFTs, different artwork, and saying what they find most valuable. The trust of these individuals grows over time. They make cash flows. It's paid out in USDC, Ethereum, pretty much any different type of cryptocurrency, including their own upcoming token that will be paid out. And you can make a consistent full-time income in the future here on Upshot by just literally appraising all these different NFTs. Anything that's taking peer-to-peer and breaking down these old school barriers where you have to call somebody up to come over and appraise things. And he says it well, where he says these high velocity assets, we don't really have a way of providing appraisals for them. I mean, with these punks, these crypto punks, Meebits, Bored Apes, all the different projects out there that just have these crazy price fluctuations. Everybody talks about the price floors now. Everybody's trying to figure out the different prices that make sense coming into this market. And having something like Upshot there to really provide this community-driven approach to value pricing is very, very smart. So Nick goes into his background and a lot of the really cool details that brought him to start Upshot. And I'm really excited for this project. It's an open beta right now. So I'm hoping to demo it eventually in the future, maybe here on the channel, and get people out there really trying to help with the price discovery of these different NFTs, because it's really a wild, wild west type of activity taking place on OpenSea and all these different marketplaces right now. So without further ado, let's sit down and talk with Nick Emmons, the co-founder and CEO of Upshot. Today, I am joined by Nick Emmons, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Upshot. How's it going today, Nick?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, let's dig into your background. I always like to start with an origin story. How did you get into this space, and what's your background?
Yeah, so I've been in crypto for a while, since about 2013, 2014, when I was in high school. I just kind of immediately became interested in the space, and after high school, kind of began a career as a software engineer. Then after doing some independent projects here and there, I joined John Hancock and Manulife to lead their kind of blockchain division. They're a couple of the largest life insurance companies in the US and Canada and parts of Asia. And when I joined, they were working on things a lot of large institutions were working on during that time. It was blockchain, not Bitcoin, private consortium chains, things like this, moving employee benefits onto the blockchain, stuff that didn't really capture the real value of blockchain. So what we did was we kind of did a 180. We built the first public blockchain project done by a large institution at the time. We partnered with large companies in the crypto space, Fortune 100 companies in the kind of traditional world. And we're really focused on like decentralized risk pooling, decentralized insurance on public Ethereum. And after I left John Hancock, I started Upshot. So that's a little bit of an origin story.
Cool. Yeah, I think 2013 and 2014 were the prime times. That was when I jumped into the space, and there was so much hype around the bull market back then. And I think it was such a cool era, much different now for sure, with bigger names and bigger brands and things like that. But let's talk about Upshot.
Sure.
What got you into NFTs, and how did you start Upshot?
Yeah, so Upshot started actually with I think a more general or abstract concept around incentivizing people to be honest in the face of subjectivity. When I was at John Hancock, we were trying to think through this issue of decentralized insurance, and every sort of aspect or most aspects of insurance come down to being able to reach consensus in the face of subjectivity, whether or not a claim is fraudulent or valid, um, how to pool risk and different kind of policies into a sound portfolio, things like this. And so decentralizing insurance requires the ability to reach consensus in the face of that subjectivity. And so when I left, I found this field of mechanism design called peer prediction that does just that. It compares people's answers to subjective questions against one another, scores them using some novel information theoretic scoring measures, and then pays them based on how honest they are. And just in recent years, 1 or 2 years, this has actually become practical and robust enough for real world use. So we developed this sort of general purpose question and answer protocol that people answer questions in and get paid based on how honest they were. And then thinking through the sort of initial application to build on top of this, there's a number of sort of applicable applications, insurance being one, and sort of like the founding application. General blockchain oracles are an example of another one, and also pricing illiquid assets. The problem with NFTs, I think, in general, and we've been in NFTs since sort of the beginning of NFTs, just kind of personally, is they are these non-fungible, low-velocity assets. So these sort of open market interactions that act as price discovery events and that provide price discovery mechanisms for more liquid, fungible assets just don't occur as often with NFTs. And when you look to similar types of assets, other non-fungible, low-velocity assets, and I guess the real world, you see things like traditional art, like real estate, relying fairly heavily on the use of appraisals, the sort of querying of experts' opinions about the value of a given asset. And we run into another problem there in that in those settings, we often have access to identity, to reputation, to firms, these things we don't have access to in a decentralized pseudonymous setting. But what we do have access to now is this sort of question and answer protocol that incentivizes honesty in the face of subjectivity. So we thought this was kind of a perfect use case. This was back in August of last year. So it was just as the NFT market was starting to heat up. And we decided to build this sort of crowdsourced NFT appraisal platform as the first application on that question and answer protocol.
Very cool. Very cool. And in terms of like the art appraising concept with this peer-to-peer interaction, what does that look like? It comes up with like a couple different pieces, like 2 or 3 different pieces, and then you say which is most valuable. And do you rate more than 2 or 5, or what does it look like in terms of how the user interacts with it?
Yeah, so we ask the user several types of questions around about different pieces of art. So one is sort of what you've described. You're given 2 pieces of art or n pieces of art and asked to kind of rank them. In the case of 2, just pick one that's more valuable. And this gives us the sort of relative idea of value because now we know that this piece is more valuable than this piece, but it doesn't allow us to get any deeper than that without sort of inferred kind of market implications on the price, like on the kind of effect of those relative rankings. So another type of question we ask are multiple choice questions. Here's a piece of art. Here are 4 price ranges that it could be worth within. Choose which one you believe it's choose the price range you believe it to kind of live within from a price perspective. And as people answer those, obviously these are, I guess, more cognitively intensive tasks because now we're digging into absolute numbers as opposed to relative rankings, but we're able to kind of peel back the curtain a little more into how much a given piece is worth. And then the third type of question we ask is, again, even more cognitively intensive in that it queries a sort of open response answer from appraisers asking how much is this piece worth. They're tasked with sort of going out and doing their own research, coming up with this free-form solution to this pricing problem and provide that price. Now, again, this is very intense. This is not the most user-friendly way of discovering the price, but it allows us the sort of highest level of granularity in discovering that price. And so it's in using those types of questions, multiple different types of questions, multiple ways of asking people how much a given piece is, that we're able to kind of zone in on what the actual price for an asset is across a kind of diverse user base of appraisers and collectors.
Got it. And then how do you become one of the appraisers? Is it that, I own a punk or a Meebit, and then I have appraising abilities for all of Larva Labs NFTs, or how are you guys approaching the people that are appraising?
Yeah, that's kind of how it works. So within the protocol, there's this concept of groups, which is how we break down the sort of types of NFTs, or more generally the types of questions being asked, as well as sort of the definitions of expertise in each of these groups. The definition of expertise is kind of what we're talking about here. This can be as simple as a whitelist of addresses that are given scores and allowed to answer questions in a given group. And it can be as complex as sort of analyzing the transaction graph of Ethereum, applying some centrality measure to that transaction graph, like a personalized page rank, and getting this really granular look into reputation and kind of how informed someone is when sort of pricing different NFTs. The way we're sort of defining expertise in the groups on the platform right now, which is, I think, a decent balance between simplicity and robustness, is what you've described. If I hold 10 CryptoPunks and you hold 5 CryptoPunks, when appraising CryptoPunks, I'm going to be twice as influential as you. And the rationale there is that if I've gone to the open market, if I've parted ways with my capital to purchase 10 CryptoPunks, I must be somewhat informed on how to price them. I wouldn't be wasting my own money by throwing money away on the open market. And so that acts as a decent sort of estimator of reputation, of sort of collector expertise or appraiser expertise.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, because I would think that the everyone that's holding the asset would obviously want it to be much dramatically higher. But if you're comparing, the 10 punk person to a 5 punk person, and they're just comparing the relative value of the two punks, I think that they're not misincentivized there to like, say, oh, Meebits is less valuable than a punk because I hold all these punks and I don't hold any Meebits. So I think it's a really interesting problem to address, and it's needed because there is just craziness going on with price
Yeah.
discovery, right? I mean, it is everywhere. It's all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just to address that point really quickly, that's sort of why the relative ranking question type is in there. One, it provides the sort of simplest user experience, but now if we're given two punks and we're both punk owners answering these things, you hold the one on the left side, I own the one on the right side. There are kind of conflicting interests at play. This sort of collusion game we're playing together, and let's just pump the price of all the punks, quickly breaks down. Now we're competing against each other. Now, obviously, I'm going to say my punk is more valuable than yours. You're going to say your punk is more valuable than mine. And our sort of agreement of pumping the price of punks falls apart. And that's sort of the sort of lesser defense against that problem. The, I think, more significant defense is that if over time we're clearly lying about the value of these punks, if we're clearly just pumping the price of punks or any NFT for our own profit, people are going to stop coming to us for appraisals. It's going to eat into our future cash flow, and assuming some moderate level of volume into the appraisal market, which we believe there will be because it's so important for illiquid assets, you end up losing over time by being dishonest due to kind of like market repercussions.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny how life works, where I majored in economics in college and studied game theory for multiple years in college. And now seeing it in practice in things like this is so interesting to me that I never would have thought that I would use knowledge around game theory later on in life so much, because it just comes into play with things like this in such a relevant way now, where you have all these people making marginal contributions to the price of punks, for example. And it's such a unique way of looking at, how we can all contribute to the price of something like a punk. So moving forward to where you're at in terms of the stage, how are you guys live? What's the status of the project now?
Yeah, we've been running an open beta for a little bit, and we're kind of refining the product and some of some different aspects of the both protocol and platform to kind of respond to user feedback and just analyzing kind of user interaction and user behavior in the beta.
Mhm.
So what we're going to be releasing in the next few weeks is this robust analytics app that we hope will be sort of like a uniswap.info for NFTs. It has a bunch of data analyzed in very interesting ways around any NFT you'd like. And so we hope it'll be this resource that's used amongst the community and especially appraisers when appraising pieces to sort of inform them on their sort of price estimations.
Mhm.
The other big thing will be sort of releasing in a production setting or a production at a production level in the next few weeks is the sort of Upshot pricing API. It'll be this simple endpoint that allows anyone to sort of query the estimated price of a given NFT. And because appraisals don't have this prerequisite of sort of ownership transferring for an asset to be repriced, what this gives us is close to real-time price feeds for NFTs. And then we have a suite of sort of sub apps that all push this NFT liquidity, NFT X DeFi movement forward in a variety of ways. Some interesting kind of exotic financial assets that can be created uniquely because we have regularly updating price feeds for NFTs.
Got it. Got it. And just kind of circling back to some of the game theory concepts that are going to need to come into play here. What EOS did back in, what was it, 2016 or 17, something like that, where they were really pioneering DPoS and showing, everybody that holds these, their stake in EOS can help govern the network. And it went live and quickly, it looked great on paper, but quickly they realized cartels formed. Exchanges were the most influential people because they had huge bags of EOS. So what are you thinking around how this is going to work with extremely influential bag holders of different NFTs, like, your Pranksies out there, your people that are out there that have these huge bags. What are your thoughts there in terms of making sure that these are actually going to be valid price predictions with huge whales coming into the picture?
Yeah, so there's kind of two aspects of that answer. One, the sort of endogenous incentives of the system make it quite expensive to sort of break the truth telling dominant strategy of the kind of underlying protocol. One, just the incentives kind of laid out in how answers are scored against one another. This is a informed, truthful mechanism, which means not only is there no strategy that either of us can play when appraising NFTs or answering questions that pays more than being honest. There's no strategy that pays more than being informed, to expending effort to provide the sort of honest answer. And combining that with some nice use of sortition and random sampling of sort of appraisers into committees, it makes it really, really quite expensive to manipulate the answer to an appraisal. And then if that falls apart, if there is such a large sort of variance in the influence of one holder, one appraiser versus the others, the open market always acts as the backstop. The way the system works is it's quite easy to cut off cash flows to a given appraiser group to sort of invalidate a given string of answers, legitimacy, or seen like a set of answers being seen as canonical within the system. And so if a whale enters and begins manipulating NFT prices to an egregious degree, the open market can respond swiftly and justly to sort of cut that action off. And again, assuming some moderate volume of appraisal activity, some moderate size of the NFT appraisal market, those cash flows that are cut off outsize the sort of temporarily manipulated prices of the NFTs held by that whale.
Got it. Got it. Well said. In terms of the cash flows itself, what are people being paid in? Is there a token of some kind that you guys have?
Yeah. So people can get paid in whatever they'd like. People can get paid in USDC, in ETH. They're also going to be getting paid in a native token that will that is sort of endogenous to the system at the moment. So it's used within the system. It's used to one can redeem value using that sort of in-game currency right now in exchange for high value NFTs or kind of different things that live within the platform. And it's the sort of combination of these two assets that people will get paid for, both appraising NFTs, for funding the appraisals of NFTs, for taking a kind of variety of productive actions within the platform.
Cool. Very cool. Well, I get to talk to a lot of, great, brilliant minds like yourself in the space. And I really enjoy hearing just outside of what you're working on, what you're excited about, because you've been in the space for basically as long as I have. You've seen a lot come and go over the years, tons of stuff coming and going.
Mhm.
So I have to ask, like, what outside of Upshot, what is, you wake up in the morning, you check your phone. What are you overly hyped about and excited about in whether crypto at large or NFTs at large, just in general?
What I think is sort of the most exciting part of the space right now and sort of the frontier of the space is the intersection of DeFi and NFTs. I think like over the past year and a half, we've seen the maturation of these two core pillars of the crypto space in DeFi and NFTs. And they've both sort of afforded us these great leaps forward in what's possible. DeFi in being this incredibly composable, permissionless environment for combining different financial primitives into increasingly complex and expressive financial instruments that kind of build up upon these Legos, with the shortcoming there being that we're limited to such a finite set of liquid slash fungible assets. And what NFTs have brought us is quite literally the ability to tokenize anything, to bring anything we'd like as sort of nuanced or granular, as broad, into a setting where these composable money Legos live onto the blockchain. And so far, for the most part, they've been somewhat siloed, kind of capping the innovation that can happen in each. And so what I think is really exciting to see more of is these two pillars interact, a sort of bridge being formed between them. Because it's when we can reliably and robustly use NFTs in a DeFi context and vice versa that we can create incredibly exotic, expressive financial instruments that not only aren't possible in the sort of DeFi blockchain space today, but potentially aren't possible in the traditional financial worlds today either. And so that's what I'm most excited about. And I think we're going to see explosive growth of that space and the experimentation in the kind of months and years to come.
Well said. Well said. Couldn't agree more on the intersection there between DeFi and NFTs, and just how fast this has happened. I mean, February was easily one of the wildest times I've experienced in crypto. And you were around for the ICO craze. You saw that happen, and that was pretty wild. But I think that the NFT explosion was bigger than the ICO craze. Would you say?
Yeah, I think a big reason for that is because during the ICO craze, that was essentially the only thing you could do with the blockchain, with Ethereum. And what we've done over the past few years is build up this pretty like diverse set of tools that are being combined permissionlessly and aggressively to create vastly new experiences of a highly diverse set of experiences. And so in February with the NFT craze this year, we were actually given a playground that can do interesting and productive things. We weren't restricted to fundraising mechanisms as the only thing the blockchain can do. And so for that reason, I think it was and continues to be a much more kind of exciting upturn or hype cycle than what happened a few years ago in 2017.
Yeah, an upshot of what's what's
Yeah,
going on.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Well, cool. Yeah, I think in terms of like the functionality of NFTs and what they're doing, like they've transformed how we're going to use crypto wallets. They've given it more, pretty much endless amounts of functionality now, where instead of just money being transacted now, like you said, can literally tokenize anything. And that crypto wallet has just grown in utility in such a cool way over the past couple of years here. So those are all the questions I have for you. Where can people go and learn more about what you're working on?
Yeah, they can follow us on Twitter at Upshot HQ. They can jump into the Discord. That's probably the best place to interact with the team and the rest of the community. And then you can check out our website at upshot.io.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Nick. You and I will have to get a drink in New York during NFT NYC.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That is it for my interview here with Nick. Fantastic time talking to him about Upshot. I really like what they're trying to do. When it does go live, I will try and demo it for you guys. But the link to their current site, upshot.io, and their Discord will be in the description below. Definitely check that out. Let me know what your thoughts are in the description. Also, I'd love to see if somebody could do this gig as like a full-time job. So if anybody out there eventually ends up doing this and creating a full-time income off of appraising NFTs on this marketplace and using this protocol of Upshot, I think it's awesome. So definitely hit me up in the DMs on Twitter. And that is it for this episode. Slap a like, helps the channel, and I will see you guys on the next episode here on Hack Crypto.